What's up, guys? Steven here from TechMaker.tv. This episode is the sixth part of building a note taking application. This should be a fairly quick episode. Essentially, what I want to do is just change up the way that our notebook's index page looks a little bit, and I also want to go ahead and add some extra things to the relationships in the database so that we can handle deleting things properly. With all of that said, let's go ahead and just kind of get started here. So you'll just have to kind of follow along. I have the idea for the layout in this in my head, and we'll see how it turns out. But let's go over to the code and let's open up our notebook's index page. And essentially what I want to do is put each one of these notebooks in a card. And so we're going to kind of have to play around with this a little bit to see exactly how we want it to look, but I'm going to copy and paste some chunks of this up here. Really, that's basically all I need right now. So actually what we want to do, each card needs to be a link. So if you click on the card at all, it's going to take you into the notebook. And I'm going to have a link inside of there, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. We'll play around with it a little bit and see how that goes, but you'll see what I mean in a second. So first thing I want to do is say link to notebook do end like this. And what this does, if you look down here, you can see that we have this link to notebook.title, and then we pass in the notebook. So what this expects is a word or phrase that it's going to put the link tag. So what this actually does, this link to will generate an A tag with an href of /notebooks/ID, and then which pulls in the ID from whichever notebook it's looking at, and then over here it's going to put the notebook title. So if our title was like ASDF, it's going to put the title. So this right here leads to this. But what you can also do in HTML is you could have something like an A tag, and then inside of here you can have like a div and then other stuff in there. And so you, in this situation, you actually have an A tag wrapping around some other HTML. So what I want to do is that. And in order to do that, you don't want to put text right here. So you don't want anything here. You just want to have the notebook or the link that you want to go to. So this could be like https google.com. Like you could do that also. So you could just put a link. But in our case, we're going to link to the notebook. And then you have to put do. And so notice down here there's no do. So what this means is this is taking a block. And so it's going to put whatever we put in this block inside of the A tag. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So we'll say we have a div, and we're going to give it a class of card. And we're going to say div card body. And then in here I'm going to put an h4 with a class of card title. And I'm going to print out the notebook.title. And so let's just quickly look at what this looks like. This is going to be way too big. They're going to be, like expanding across the entire page. But you can see that if we hover anywhere over this card, it's essentially highlighting that link because the entire card is a link. So let's clean this up a little bit. So what I want to do is say, let's say above the notebooks, we put a new row. So this is all Bootstrap related stuff. So if you don't know Bootstrap at all, this may look a little strange. So you'll have to go read up on Bootstrap a little bit. But hopefully if you follow along, you'll kind of get it. Okay, so inside of our row, what I'm going to do here is say something like, well actually not inside the row, inside of the notebook, we want each notebook to take up like, let's say a third of the page. And so Bootstrap is a 12 column grid system. So we can say like COLMD4 maybe. So on medium screens and up. We'll evaluate that later. So let's take a look at what this does now. So now you can see here it's splitting them up onto these different sections, or these different columns rather. let's go ahead and put an MB3 on this. So let's do MB3 to kind of bump everything down below it. And we're going to get rid of, and actually, you know what? We might want to do MB4 in this case. Just kind of eyeballing it. We're going to get rid of that table in just a second. So we won't actually have that table at the bottom when we're done here. I'm going to make this an H5 because the H4 looks a little big to me. I'm going to add a class here on this card of, well, actually on the card body of P4 to kind of give this more padding. Let's make that P5. I really want it to be kind of padded in quite a bit. I don't know, we'll work on the design more later, like fine-tuning it. And then let's go ahead and we need to add a couple of things here. And actually, I'm going to get rid of the padding here now that I'm thinking about what I'm doing a little bit more. So what I want to do is add like a little icon like you have on Facebook for editing a post or something like that. So we're going to put that here. And to do that, I want to use Font Awesome. So Font Awesome is a really cool free library. This isn't the page you're looking for. Fontawesome.com. That's strange. Okay, anyway, so let's look at the start page. And actually, I'm going to look up a Font Awesome CDN because I don't want to sign up here on camera. I would definitely do that for a real project, but for this, I'm just going to copy. This, and we'll go back over to our application layout file, and we'll just paste that in right here above the. Well, it doesn't matter. Just under Bootstrap is fine. Okay, so what this is going to let us do is if we go back over to Font Awesome and we go to the icons, what we should be able to do is search for, I think it's ellipsis maybe. Yeah, so I want an ellipsis H. So I'm going to copy this, and inside of our title here, let's put this on a new line and just paste that in there, and let's see what this looks like. Okay, so we're not actually getting anything. Okay, so I broke down and just went ahead and signed up over on Font Awesome. It's free and easy. It used to be more of just like a link to a CDN thing, but I think they want you to really use their particular platform now. So now this works. So let's look at exactly what I was trying to do here, what I would like to do. So let's just see if this actually can work in the way that I'm imagining. So I'm going to say deflex here, and then justify content. I think it's between, right? And then here I just need to add a span tag or something around the title. And let's look and see what this does. So now this kicks this over here. But these are actually one and the same link. So what I want this to do actually is be a different link and represent a drop down. So let's see if we can actually even make that happen. So I want to go to like, let's just go to google.com. Doesn't really matter, but I want to just put this inside of another A tag and see if we can make it work. So now these are sort of behaving differently, right? So if I hover here, it's Google. If I go slightly off, now this is actually linking to the other stuff. But now you'll notice that when I hover here in the middle, we basically get nothing. So that kind of breaks down what I was trying to do. So in actual fact, we could probably not necessarily put the whole link in the, let's do this. Let's bump this down. And let's get this in tag. Sorry, I'm just kind of experimenting here. I don't remember how everything works off the top of my head all the time. So let's just grab this. So this is basically, now we can just do link to notebook, title, notebook, and we don't need all this extra stuff now. So now let's look and see what this does. So now it looks exactly the same and works the same. And I kind of like this a little bit better. So we've got a little bit more to do here, but now this is looking a little bit more in the direction I was thinking. So what we're going to do next is turn this into a drop down that's going to contain our edit and destroy links. And then we're going to add a couple of extra things to these cards and then get rid of the table. Okay, so let's open a new tab and look up our Bootstrap drop down. Drop downs, Bootstrap. Okay, so you can see here that we are essentially going to have something like this. So let's just copy this, and I'm going to go ahead and paste it right here below, and we'll align all of this stuff properly. Okay, so then here what I want to do is copy my ellipsis, and I don't actually need this A tag. Obviously, we don't want to link to Google everywhere. And we'll paste that there. And then here, let's come down and let's just copy our link to edit. And we'll paste this here. And we'll need to give it a class of drop-down item, which you can see below, in order to make it match the others. And then we can go ahead and just get rid of those other ones. Going to do the same thing for the destroy. And we'll give it a class of drop-down item also. And I'm also going to change this to say delete, because destroy is not typical vernacular for a normal web user, and destroy sounds a little bit too intense in my opinion. Okay, so lastly, let's change this to be BTN Lite for now, and let's just go look and see what we've got. So now you can see that we've got these little buttons here with the arrow, which we're going to get rid of the arrow. I don't care for that. Also, something you'll notice, if you click, nothing happens. And the reason nothing happens is because we actually didn't include the Bootstrap JavaScript. So I'm going to pull that in from a CDN. This is not going to work well with our, how can we say this? It's not going to work well with TurboLinks. I should just click this copy button. So we're actually going to have to pull this in differently shortly, and I'll explain why in another video. And for some reason this is all completely messing up my syntax highlighting over here. So this looks like a big mess, so let's just paste all this in, save it, and close it because it's ugly. Now let's go back and let's do a refresh on this screen and see if we get a drop down. So now you can see here that we have the drop downs. We can edit, cancel, we can delete, so on and so forth. So this won't play nicely with TurboLinks most likely, and I think I just mentioned this, but we will need to do another video where I do a realistic installation of this, because normally in a Rails app you would bring this in through a different place. So we'll talk about that later. Okay, so let's make a couple of small changes here. So first of all, and again, these are all my decisions. You can kind of style this differently if you want. I'm going to take away this drop-down toggle class, which I think as long as we have this data toggle equals drop-down afterwards, it shouldn't matter if we have that or not. So let's refresh, and that's just going to leave us with these dots. And you can see here we still get our drop-down. The second thing that I want to do here is if we put on our DevTools, and we can do like a mobile simulator here, and we'll just do a refresh. Actually, I don't have I'm missing a tag. I'm missing a meta tag, so I'll need to do that also. So let's just leave it in responsive. But if I click this, that's going to go off camera. So I need to add a meta tag for making this actually work on mobile. And then I need to add a class here so this aligns properly. So let's do the class first. So in the drop-down menu class, I think we can just say drop-down menu right, and let's refresh over here and see what we get. So now it pops under like that, and I think that works a little bit better for our use case. Let's look up and add this meta tag really quick. So I just did a quick Google search, and we need to go back to our application HTML, and we just want to drop in this meta tag right here. And essentially this lets you have your app be responsive on all the different devices. I'm actually not an expert on that, so I'm not going to try to explain what it means, but now if we turn on our mobile simulator, you can see that it looks pretty good. One thing I'm noticing is that that MB4 that we added is too big, so let's close this and let's go back here and make this a 3, and let's have a look. I think that looks a little bit more natural flowing. One other thing I'm going to do here while I'm in mobile is add a MB4 to our header. So I really want to bump that down just a bit to give it a little more space. Okay, so now this looks pretty cool. So now if we go out of here, this is looking a little bit better. I don't like the text highlighting like that, and in actual fact, I would rather have a button instead of a link for the title, and I'm going to add a couple of other little elements here, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so first, let's go back to our code, and the first thing I'm going to do is add a class here of notebook card, and we'll be utilizing that in just a second. But before we continue, so we've got our H5 here, which is basically all that we've got in this card is just the card title. Below that, I'm going to add just a paragraph, and I'm going to say something like, let's say notebook.pages.count, and I'm just going to say pages, and then we'll add another p tag and say something like, well, what do we want to say here? So started, and then there's this cool method we can use in Rails, time ago in words, and then we'll say notebook.createdAt, and then we'll just say after this, we need to close that tag, we'll say ago. So let's go back over here and refresh and see what that looks like. Undefined method not book. Okay, so we need an E right here. Okay, so this is kind of cool. So I want to basically now add a couple of classes to this. So, and the other thing I wanted to do, sorry, last little bit here. So first of all, let's add a class of page count, and let's add a class of, let's just say started. Started is fine, and then we'll add another, just a link here. So we'll say link to, and then we'll do notebook dot, well, let's say link to view notebook, and then I'm going to add a class here of btn primary. We may change that in a second, I'm not sure, but let's see what we got here. So now in actual fact, I don't really want this to be blue. I'm going to change the way that looks, I think. Maybe the blue is fine, I'm not sure. But this is looking pretty cool now. But let's add some CSS now so that we can actually style this a little bit. So in order to add styles, what I want to do is go in here inside of this JavaScript directory. So not the assets at the top. So the newer way that we want to do this typically is in the JavaScript folder. And I'm going to add a new folder called Style Sheets. And then inside of packs in application.js, what we can do is import, I think, I'm going to have to double check if this is how we do this exactly, but we'll say style sheets slash, and then I'm going to say, let's call this one notebooks. And then inside of my style sheets, I'm going to create a new file, underscore notebooks.scss. So let's just do a quick sanity check. So let's save everything, and let's in here change the body to have a background color of black. And let's go refresh and see what we have. Hopefully we didn't mess anything up. That doesn't necessarily mean we did right there. So we have a cannot find module, style sheets, notebook. So that's not the right syntax. Let me look up how to do that really quick. So it looks like I basically skipped a step. So what I need to actually do is create a new file in here called application.scss. And then in this here, I need to say application. And then, so you'll notice that the underscore notebooks, the application doesn't have an underscore. So in application, we can import notebooks like that. So let's see, I'm just going to double check I saved everything, and let's try this and see what happens. I think this one will work. Yeah, okay, so now our CSS is set up. So we obviously don't want a black background for the body. So let's go ahead and start adding some styles. In actual fact, there's one other thing I need to do in application.html. So again, we're going to clean all this up later, so don't worry too much about it. But right here you have this style sheet link tag. We need to change this to be a pack tag. Now, sorry, I can't type right now. So the reason for this is that we're using Webpacker essentially, and for some reason this all works in localhost fine if you don't change this, but if you try to push to production or somewhere without that pack tag being changed like that, then it won't work. So that will just save us some headaches later. Okay, so let's go ahead and maybe start styling this. So what I want to actually do, I don't want this to have text decoration. So let's go look at what we've got. So we've got over here, let's close a couple of things. We have our notebook card. So I'm going to start by creating a notebook card class up here. Then down in here, we have our card title. And this is card title is where that link is. So I'm going to say text decoration none. Let's see what that does. And it does nothing. So let's see, what do we need to do? Text decoration is on the A tag, so it's card title A, right? Like that. Now let's see what this does. So now we don't have the underline, which I prefer personally. Maybe we'll change the color, make it black at some point. I don't know, maybe it's fine the way it is. We'll leave that alone for now. The next thing I want to do is just decrease the margin that all of these P tags have. So I want to bump these up a little bit. So let's look at that. So we have our P tags down here. What is the margin currently? Let's check. So I'm going to turn off the mobile simulator and bring this back over like that. And we'll look again, where are we? So we have the P tag here. So it's got a margin on the bottom of, I don't know how much it is without digging into it a little bit more. Margin bottom 1 rem. So let's try 0.5, something like that. I don't know. Actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put these in a div, and I'm going to call these stats for now. And then I'm going to bump those up in there. And then what I'm going to do is say, so we have notebook card stats, and inside of here I'm going to make the P tag have a margin bottom of 0.5 rem. And then over on the stats, I'm going to give it an MB4, and let's see what this looks like. So it should be kind of spaced out a little bit differently. So now we have our stats kind of in the middle, and you kind of have an equal spacing between the title and the button down here, which I kind of like. Um, let's see, just a couple other things. So my page count, dot page count. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe that's fine. I was kind of thinking to make that bold or something. Um, maybe let's leave page count alone for now. Let's just take the started. I want that to be gray, so I'm just gonna make the color. Let's make it like 777777, and let's see what this looks like. I think that looks pretty good. I mean, it's subtle, but I like it. So the last thing that I need to do is make a change to how the delete works. And then once we're done with this, we'll be done with this episode. So if we delete this right now, let's go in here and look at the pages. So we have this page which has an ID of 6, okay? So let's go over here to our database, log into the Rails console, and look up a page.find6. So you can see here we have the ID testing. If we go back, so now if I delete the notebook, what needs to happen is the pages also need to get deleted. So let's go ahead and delete this and see what happens. So I'll delete this, and it's actually going to give me an error. Now this didn't used to be this way. Used to, it would actually delete the top object and leave everything below sort of dangling. So you have these objects that are totally disconnected. So what we need to do is go into our notebook class and say has many pages dependent destroy. And so what this is going to do is say, hey, if you delete the notebook, you've also got to delete the pages. So let's try this again and let's see what happens. I didn't click the right button. So let's click this and let's delete it. And so now it actually deletes the notebook. And if we come in here and we look up page find 6, that page is gone. So that's basically everything that I wanted to take care of in this episode. Let's go ahead and click around and just kind of see what we think. I mean, we're definitely going to need to come in here and clean this up, but I think now we have this nice differentiation between, okay, we're on the notebooks page, and then we click in, and now there's pages below that. So what I'm going to do next is start adding things to the actual pages. So the next episode is going to be on how to add rich text content to the page. And then from there, we'll start adding things like checklists and videos and images and so on and so forth. So I hope you're enjoying this series. I know it's a little bit long, but it's kind of building up a full app from scratch. When I'm done here, I'm actually going to deploy this and put it on a real domain so that people can use it if they want. So you're going to see the build out of an entire real app from scratch. So hopefully you stick around, and I will talk to you in the next episode.